Let's get started with Group A. So Barcelona Benfica, they're facing off Tuesday, 3 p.m. Barcelona, absolutely fucking loaded. 7 wins, no losses, no draws. Never lost this so far this year in their domestic league. 28 goals for, 2 goals against. Some very familiar names. Alexia Putellas, Caldente Paredes, Salma Parriello, Caroline Graham-Hansen, Bon Mati, Lucy Bronze, Fridolina Rolfo, who had the tournament winner last year over Wolfsburg in the final. Ona Batie, Kira Walsh, Oshwala, Katakoi. I mean, they're absolutely loaded. So in 7 matches,
come on, man.
Their bench is probably at worst the 3rd or 4th best team in the tournament. They've gotten goals in their 7 matches domestically. They've gotten goals from 11 different players. Ooh. Last year in Liga F, they finished 28-1-1 with 118 goals for and 10 goals against, which is just absurd.
Seems good.
Pretty good numbers. So far domestically this year, they've yet to play either fellow Spanish Champions League side Real Madrid or Levante, but I'm not sure that matters. By the way, they won the whole fucking tournament last year. So they're going to be a team to watch. They take on Benfica from Portugal, who finished first in that league last year, and they sit at the top of the table again this year. 5 wins, no losses, no draws, 20 goals for, 1 goal against. They're very scrappy. In 4 qualification matches, they got 23 goals in those 4 matches to get them in. Not the toughest road on the way in, but what I love about this side, those 23 goals came from 12 different players. The downside here is they got worked by Barcelona last year in the group stage. So they lost 9-0 in Spain and they lost 6-2 at home. They got roughed up pretty good, but I think we saw them in this year's World Cup. You called it out when we did our World Cup coverage that I think they had 7 or 8 players from this Benfica side representing in Portugal, and they had a really, really nice showing, including 4 who played against the U.S. Carol Costa, Catarina Amado, Jessica Silva, and Kika Nazareth, who scored against Vietnam. They were eliminated last season in the group stage. Unfortunately, they were lumped in alongside Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Tough sledding, a little bit of a break, a little bit more of a break. I think they come into this group as probably the 2nd best team in the group. And like I said, these 2 teams face off Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Very interested to hear what you're looking forward to in this one.
I can't wait to watch this one. I think scrappy is a good term to use for just Portuguese football in general right now. Yeah, Jessica Silva had a really nice showing in the World Cup. We kind of watched them a little closely, I think, during this last World Cup, and I'm interested to see how much of that experience is really going to kind of like help them going into this tournament now. Like this was obviously, like we talked about it a lot during the World Cup. That was the most watched World Cup ever. It was the most attended Women's World Cup ever. Now those players have like this real experience to kind of look back on and say, okay, the lights have never been brighter on us before. Yeah, we got killed by Barcelona last Champions League. Let's turn it up and see what we're able to do now. I expect the bus to be firmly parked, but I expect an aggressive counterattack from Benfica, similar to the way the Portuguese national team played. Am I confident it's going to work? Not super confident because, I mean, just the level of talent on Barcelona is unreal. But think about all the games during the Women's World Cup that we watched where it was like, this is a mismatch, and teams were able to kind of play tight, play counterattacking style. I think we're going to get some of that here. Is it a 2-0 game? Is it a 2-1 game? I think that would be pretty fucking rad if it is. And if it ends up being a 5-0 game, then we can kind of look at it and go, okay, we shouldn't be too surprised if it breaks that way. But either way, I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think Benfica last season, just because of the draw, probably total kitchen sink type of approach, right? They needed to get whatever they can from wherever they could. Coming into this group stage, I think they're probably expected to advance to the quarters. Mm-hmm. And it is tough to continually beat a team over and over, especially like when a team like Benfica might be coming in with a chip on their shoulder. So I could definitely see a closer, more hotly contested match between these two. And I think it's kind of probably good for Benfica to get this one out of the way early, as opposed to maybe having a couple good showings and then getting humbled by a Barcelona team. But let's scoot ahead to the next matchup. Rosengård, and apologies in advance if we're butchering any of these pronunciations. We're just a couple dudes trying our best. Mm-hmm. Rosengård is taking on Eintracht Frankfurt. This one's going down Tuesday, 12:45 p.m. Rosengård won the Swedish league last season, but Currently, they sit 7th in the table this season. They had 4 players who played in the World Cup. Domestically, they're at 11 wins, 9 draws, and 5 losses. 51 goals for, 32 goals against. So not really crushing it. And they've also played 25 matches already domestically. So I can imagine they could be a little gassed coming into the group stage of the tournament where shit really gets real. Probably just tough to play outdoors in that frigid Sweden winter. So they probably try to get the domestic league out the door pretty early.
Yep.
They also made the group stage last year, but they were in the same group with Barcelona, Benfica, and Bayern. And girl, did they have a tough time. Last year in the group stage, no wins, no draws, 6 losses, 3 goals for, 20 goals against. So rough sledding for the gang from Rosengård. And I think just getting dropped into the group stage at the tail end of your domestic season, especially against this level of competition, is brutally unforgiving. So we'll see how much they've got left in the tank this year. They take on Eintracht Frankfurt, who finished 3rd in Frauen-Bundesliga last year. And they sit 5th currently this year. 3 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses. So only 10 points from 6 matches. Goals for, goals against, pretty even. They're only at a +3 goal differential. Their 2 losses came against 7th place Essen and 2nd place Wolfsburg. And their draw came against Bayern Munich. Laura Freegang has 4 goals in 6 matches. Sarah Durson, one of their key defenders, is also a regular starter on Germany's World Cup team, was a name we recognized. Austrian midfielder Barbara Dunst also has notched 3 goals so far this year for Frankfurt. Last year, this team was knocked out in the league path competition, losing 2-1 to Ajax. So that just goes to show how tough that league path is. You know, you're playing real teams just to stay alive. So again, huge props to all 16 sides for making it this far.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say these two teams, for different reasons, might have a tough time making it out of this group stage. But I do expect this first match to be pretty well contested.
Yeah, I agree. I think you raised an excellent point about the Swedish league, one of my favorite league names, the Damallsvenskan. Gotta love that. I mean, you know, you look at the name of the league, the name of the teams in the league. Just run to IKEA and buy some furniture, and I think the names are roughly similar in some cases. But the point you raised about Damallsvenskan is it's got to be tough at the end of your league campaign to then come into this competition and be competitive. You know, it's not the best setup for that squad, especially if, you know, it's based on the previous season's results. So if you're Rosengård and you're having a rough go of it throughout the whole season, that's like, okay, I guess now we play in the Champions League. Like, I do suppose it could cut both ways where it's like, okay, season's over, wipe that. Now is like the real thing that we want to try to make an impact in. But it's going to be hard to say until we see how it plays out. But I'm with you. I think between Frankfurt and Rosengård, both of these teams have to go into this match going, get 3 points out of this. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little chippy when they're out there. And I think it should end up being some pretty good football.
That's a great point, too. I mean, got to get something out of this match. 3 points for either of these teams kind of also changes the tenor of the group stage. You know, I mean, if this ends up being like a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw, I think we kind of know where this one's headed. But if one of these teams jump out, get a couple goals early, and really kind of suffocate the other side, you know, that really might set them on a path. You know, they might be looking at Benfica and being like, well, all right, well, if we can recreate it, we might be onto something here. So pretty excited about this one as well. All right, man. Champions League preview. I think we did it. That'll do it for this episode. But be sure to follow and subscribe into the channel. We broke down the qualification process. We dove heavy into all 4 groups, how we got here, what we expect to see in these group stage matches, and hopefully provided a valuable look ahead with regards to what we expect from this year's tournament and this week's games. Big thanks to my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. We are about to embark on quite the journey, my friend. I know you and I will be locked in, and here's to hoping our audience will be locked in right along there with us every step of the way.
Yeah, man, I think we're just in for an absolute banger of a tournament. I'm just excited to watch, and I will see you next week to recap some of these amazing games.
Hell yeah. Super glad to be doing this with you. Episode 1 in the books. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Looking forward to the journey. Enjoy the football.